British science fiction played an important role in representing visions of the future, with ideas based on the hopes and fears most relevant within society. While America triumphantly led the world in space exploration and optimistic visions of the future, Britain's outlook was more gloomy. British science fiction instead coped with the anxiety of the decline of world power. Britain was not optimistic with its future, but British science fiction contradicted this by showing the world under a technological utopia aiming to depict a brighter future. The origins of science fiction stem back to the time machine. H. G. Wells applied the ramifications of science and technology to time travel. In War of the Worlds, futuristic alien beings possessed technology beyond the comprehension of men. By the 1960s, the Quatermass trilogy placed science and technology at the center of stories as Bernard Quatermass repelled alien invaders. Science fiction by the 1960s had seeped into the British public's consciousness during the height of the space race. Television critics compare the originality of Gerry Anderson's Thunderbirds with contemporary science fiction productions and action in the 1960s. Critics have paid attention to the presentation of the space race and the Cold War when comparing science fiction media and books. Through creative storytelling, Anderson predicted that technology would help and hinder mostly the higher classes, whose status allowed them the benefit of experiencing the most advanced technological luxuries. Gerry Anderson's inspiration for Thunderbirds began on Thursday, the 24th of October 1963. A sedimation pond broke at an iron mine in Germany and flooded beneath the ground, leaving 129 miners trapped underground. This news stimulated a brand new series for his production company AP Films that was to follow their latest series, Stingray. Gerry, with his wife Sylvia Anderson, envisioned a future where mankind would need saving from rescue disasters by means of technological equipment. The use of high tech machinery aided to save and acknowledge the necessity of life. By 1965, Thunderbirds was the fourth series produced under Anderson's SUPERMARIONATION banner. The AP Films team had learned invaluable filming techniques, which allowed greater realism in achieving their ideas with puppetry and visual effects. Thunderbirds' cultural appeal drew its inspiration from the social anxieties of 1960s Britain. The science fiction elements of the series reflected science and technology benefiting the world 100 years into the future. Thunderbirds has been discussed by scholars of media and film, but not previously from a historical perspective. Writers' previous findings lack historical accounts of the series within the 1960s. Television historians Marcus Hearn and Ian Fryer have considered the themes represented in Thunderbirds to reflect the fears and concerns of 1960s Britain. Andrew Pixley and Chris Bentley have researched into the production of the series. Each historian has successfully explored the cultural phenomenon that Thunderbirds was. The primary and secondary sources encompass 1960s reviews, behind the scenes films, and autobiographies and interviews from the senior members of AP Films, such as the Andersons. This material offers insight into the creative decisions that provided an entertaining program using groundbreaking British filming techniques. This new investigation will examine Thunderbirds in a historical context. Thunderbirds confidently raised thought provoking questions about gender, class, and nationality during the Cold War era. The series reflected the political time period with changing gender and class structures. America is placed as a key asset out of our three key chapters. The first chapter explores science and technology and the ways in which these are implicated between the nationality of British and American characters. The role of nationality depended who was able to benefit from the luxuries of science and technology to the fullest. The second part examines how the space race and gender are inextricably linked and presented with gender and the absence of femininity within the Tracy family. The final chapter covers the Cold War influences represented through class. This chapter examines which subclasses were attempting to acquire the secrets that controlled the world's source of energy, which affected the global balance of power. As Thunderbirds needed to be acquired by an American television network to justify ITC Entertainment's cost to produce the series, Thunderbirds took a heavy influence from America. The stories selected throughout this investigation best reflected Anderson's concerns, highlighting specific dangers that the world may face with the use of high power technology. The episodes scrutinized the elaborate dangers of harnessing energy to power futuristic technology leading to disasters, whereas others explored the conquest of space travel. Each episode eventually calls for international rescue to act when lives are threatened. The series' main leads represented all male and American heroes flying supersonic aircrafts, making them the primary stars of Thunderbirds. Other stories break from the series' traditional rescue format and become Cold War allegories, which are best reflected with episodes centered around Lady Penelope and Parker. Penelope and Parker display a unique role in Britain's class system, playing an iconic spy duo to who, at least from an American perspective, reflect the stereotypical class structure. Penelope, as a secret agent, created a unique role model for girls, which generated a mass following outside Thunderbirds. On the surface, the world of 2065 was superficially glamorized, with the Americans leading intergalactic travel during the space race. Thunderbirds' pessimism of predicting disasters came inspired from Britain's declining empire and the Suez Crisis. Fears over nuclear power inspired by the Cuban Missile Crisis resulted in futuristic stories dealing with the use of atomic energy. Taking inspiration from these concerns, Anderson created a series that represented the dangers of society reliant on technology and the heroic role of international rescue within the stories. The filmmaking techniques employed throughout Thunderbirds by the AP Films team created an enduring technological appeal. Anderson cemented Thunderbirds not only as an essential family television series, but also a major 1960s British franchise. The Thunderbirds mania period reflected Anderson's predictions of a dystopian future gripped by the fears within British society and culture. Thunderbirds' popularity cemented the series' cultural appeal beyond the 1960s, maintaining the series' cult status. The programme's pioneering visual effects were refined for later Gerry Anderson productions and other British feature films. Audiences have compared the presentation of a future world displayed from the fears of 1960s Britain with that of more contemporary technology available. Science and technology were at the forefront of lifestyles in Thunderbirds, in providing luxury and comfort, particularly for the upper classes. Thunderbirds was not only Anderson's first program, where technology aided mankind, but the program also considered the role of nationality by representing the benefit of technology on a global scale. The series effectively celebrated the potential scientific advancements of the future, but also exploits them as a source of dramatic tension. Anderson stressed that America would lead the progression of technology by making the leads of Thunderbirds American. Thunderbirds represented technology to help and hinder lives through mechanized devices and vehicles seen in, most notably, Trapped in the Sky and Terror in New York City. Chemical science also led to harmful consequences in Attack of the Alligators. These three episodes perfectly represented accidental and man-made disasters in situations that placed a heavy reliance on science and technology. The episodes then unfold for international rescue to come and save mankind. The universe of Thunderbirds displayed an age of technological utopia with luxury aircrafts, high-rise living, and scientific breakthroughs. To protect the knowledge of where international rescue acquire their technology, Anderson decided that international rescue was to be cloaked in secrecy. The rescue disasters within the series compellingly enhanced the series' entertainment value and popularity from stories inspired by real-life events. The visual requirements of the science fiction element within Thunderbirds led AP Films' production company to become leading British filmmakers. When Thunderbirds entered production, Britain was enduring Howard Wilson's white heat of the scientific revolution. Wilson envisioned that Britain would abandon dated means of factoring industry and embrace the advancements of contemporary science and technology to harbour a modernised Britain. The progress of technology was on Anderson's mind when imagining a future where mankind placed essential importance on technology for the maintenance of lifestyles and scientific research. The universe of Thunderbirds convincingly represented a superficially glamorous society with visually attractive people created with lavish set designs and artistic puppetry. However, Thunderbirds also suggested a more pessimistic future in which the technology the world depended on was what was also a major risk to the safety of people's lives. The rescue disasters in Thunderbirds both entertained and offered audiences a darker vision of the future. Science fiction allowed writers to express their fears of the future through a fictional universe. Anderson's inspiration for a pessimistic future can be linked to the declining British Empire and Suez Crisis. Britain in 1914 to 1945 mostly consisted of war and depression. Britain, after the First World War, struggled to rebuild the economy due to the war's high interest payments. The Second World War impacted Britain's colonial relationships. Britain decolonized South Asia as the Cold War began to affect America's policies towards decolonization. The intervention of Britain during Suez encouraged other countries to question Britain's role as a superpower. President Eisenhower forced Britain to reconsider their colonial control of their defences whilst they benefited from NATO alliances. A key prediction made by the Andersons was the application of atomic energy to machinery and gadgets, creating Thunderbirds' technological utopia. The fire flash from Trapped in the Sky, or the engines which moved the Empire State Building in Terror in New York City, used atomic power. Anderson presented the concept that atomic energy would be used as a cleaner source of power than fossil fuels to bring about a modernized way of living. Often throughout Thunderbird's atomic age, nuclear reactors go awry, threatening to cause cataclysmic disaster to people's lives, which provided some of Thunderbird's most thrilling and memorable episodes. The dangers of malfunctioning technology provided dramatic tension and increased the series' entertainment value successfully through disasters that threaten major loss of life. Within minutes into the opening episode, the audience are presented with the luxury aircraft Fireflash, capable of travelling 6 times the speed of sound. In Britain at this time, flights for leisure were still restricted to the wealthy, so flight itself would have been perceived as an elite experience. The Fireflash provided comfort for travel for wealthy tourists of all nationalities, allowing the journey of tourists to be conducted in pleasure. The Fireflash provided open spaces with warm carpets, wine bar, magazines, all of which provided an attractive, comfortable leisure experience. British holidaymakers were allowed the opportunity to travel abroad in favour of British destinations. Flying to continental destinations provided tourists with an aspirational glamour. However, Thunderbirds' opening instalment carefully discussed the dangerous consequences of air disasters, such as the British-made Havilland Comet jet airliners, as a fresh reminder of British air disasters. The plot of the episode centres around the series' antagonist, the Hood, who is determined to steal the secrets of International Rescue's technology by forcing them into their first assignment. The Hood exploited mankind's use of technology for his own corrupt needs. He uses the technology of Fireflash as a threat against the crew of the aircraft and the controllers at London Airport. The Hood attached a bomb to the landing gear of the Fireflash, meaning when the aircraft is in flight and attempts to land, the aircraft will explode and release radiation across the area it lands in this case in the episode, London Airport. If Fireflash stayed within the air for too long, the crew would receive radiation exposure from the craft's atomic reactor. Anderson depicted how International Rescue's technology was used to help save humanity whilst posing a threat to life. Jeff Tracy stated that their machinery was used to help mankind, but could also be used to destroy life if used within the wrong hands. For this reason, the secrets of international rescue technology must remain safely protected. Marcus Hearn recognized that international rescue acted with discretion in equipping their operations to avoid revealing the secrets of where their organization acquired their technology. Anderson forged a cynical means of a reliance on power by depicting the world being led by mechanized devices. The type of rescue scenarios represented in Thunderbirds prove that normal means of emergency services are inadequate and instead new technologies are required. International Rescue quickly become a rescue organization dedicated to the service of mankind by preventing the loss of life. To save the Fireflash, International Rescue, who use atomic energy to power their machines, employ their elevator cars for the Fireflash to land without the bomb detonating, thus saving the crew from radiation poisoning. The Americans, coming to save Britain, made Trapped in the Sky a perfect episode to represent the series' man-made disasters. Gerry Anderson was inspired by his experiences in the RAF to write Trapped in the Sky, in which an aircraft touching down is unable to land due to a malfunctioning landing gear. Trapped in the Sky was later described by Anderson to be his favourite episode in his entire filmmaking career. The story, which was set in London, represented the Americans leading the progression of technology. The stiff upper lip British required the help of the handsome Americans to save Fireflash when their own attempts to dismantle the Hood's bomb failed. With Britain's diminished international role in the post-war period and Britain's financial dependence on America, Britain was unable to provide financial support to aid in preventing their own disasters. In Thunderbirds, Anderson envisioned that Britain's backing and implementation of life-saving equipment came dependent from America. The launch sequences in Thunderbirds, moments where the Tracy brothers quickly ascended to their vehicles after receiving a distress call, emphasized the huge scale that international rescue was operating on. Composer Barry Gray created fast-paced action scenes matching the explosive destructions and moments of tension, such as the Fireflash landing. Gray's epic score triumphantly matched the ingenious Thunderbirds opening titles, described by Gerry Anderson's biographers as a trailer to each episode's installment. The series' rapid brass and drum orchestration powerfully matched the fast-paced nature of Thunderbirds with explosions and aircrafts, which created an emotional response with British audiences. Gray's music establishes a motif for particular moments of jeopardy or the Thunderbirds on a rescue mission. His scores guided and celebrated the science and technology, or moments of tension when science created unexpected disasters. Thunderbirds' score, using ensembles and electronic sound effects, overall added to the sense of being in a technological utopia in a post-industrial society. Terror in New York City effectively framed the series' accidental disasters around the implementation of technology. Science and technology are once again considered of being capable of helping and hindering mankind. Anderson was keen to represent American national identity, with America leading as a democratic nation through luxury high-rise living and skyscrapers. This was inspired by the movement of skyscrapers in China and Japan. In doing so, Anderson included a variety of global rescues to cast characters from a wide range of nationalities. The series represented the influence of Britain's relationship with British culture. The counterculture, imported from America to Britain, gave an optimistic utopian universe for younger Britons to perceive with a futuristic world. Anderson chose the Empire State Building to increase the American appeal of Thunderbirds by showcasing famous landmarks for audiences to recognize. Presenting Britain at the forefront of leading technology powered through atomic energy was unacceptable for the American market at the peak of the space race. Ian Fryer constructively analyzed the frightening reality of buildings creating destruction because of unstable ground from urban regeneration. Cities changed from unsuitable slum housing and beautiful Victorian architecture to Art Deco high-rise living. New York was glamorously presented with the Empire State Building standing as a perfect monument to showcase luxury high-rise living. Atomic reactors were capable of moving a huge monument, meaning technology was able to move heavy infrastructure as the monument stood. Because of underground rivers, the force of technology upon the monument brought about the destruction of the Empire State Building. As this site was not foreseen, Terror in New York City emphasizes Thunderbird's episodes of depicting technology leading to accidental disasters. Pessimistic views about the future, represented through the horrific consequences of science and technology, were exemplified in Attack of the Alligators. The episode successfully presented scientific experiments going wrong and the need for international rescue to save lives in peril. In this episode, American scientists solved the world's food shortage problems by increasing the size of animals biologically with the theremin substance. Inspired by H. G. Wells's Food of the Gods, the substance is released into a river, causing the alligators to enlarge and turn into savage monsters. The mutation of alligators represented science running out of control by threatening human lives. The American scientists are displayed as leading the development of science to aid in addressing global crises. American identity comes off as world leading in chemical science by providing answers to solve famine and hunger in less developed countries. Fryer argued that Attack of the Alligators is one of Thunderbird's most memorable episodes, with the use of real life alligators, creating a realistic peril for the audiences by witnessing alligators attacking the scientist's house. AP Films' visual effects team shocked specimens with electric currents to force the alligators' mouths to open. In terms of technicalities, the visual effects team struggled to control the alligators, and this resulted in the episode going significantly over budget and over schedule. Despite these problems, Derek Meddings, AP Films' special effects supervisor, once stated in a Thunderbirds behind-the-scenes film that nothing is impossible in special effects. The film provides fascinating insight into AP Films' visual department, demonstrating the lengths Anderson's filmmakers were prepared to go to achieve the most realistic future visions. Anderson often described the visual effects of his programs as one of the most entertaining aspects of his series, providing destructive scenes and pyrotechnics to create an all-action adventure series. Shooting for Thunderbirds began in September 1964. Models filmed in front of a rolling sky background gave the impression of a vehicle traveling in flight or along roads. Underwater effects were filmed behind a glass tank filled with water, creating the illusion models were underwater. Thunderbirds episodes were shot in pairs, with 2 crew units and 3 visual effect units working on one episode simultaneously, speeding up the filming process. The technical appeal of Thunderbirds impacted the representation of futuristic science fiction elements in other contemporary output. In particular, The Prisoner featured similar mechanized technology seen in control rooms that are reminiscent of the ones seen in Gerry Anderson's programs. With Meddings' groundbreaking visuals and convincing scientific predictions, science fiction technology allowed Thunderbirds' popularity to endure and become a leading series within filmmaking entertainment. AP Films created a sophisticated technological age which surpassed the series' science fiction competitors. Inspired by Britain's declining international power, Anderson questioned the role of nationality by discussing whether technology aided or harmed lives. Thunderbirds displayed a unique vision of a world growing reliant on technology. Society was glamorously depicted, but was undeniably flawed by accidental and deliberate technological malfunctions and scientific errors. The creative genius behind Thunderbirds ensured that the series told exciting stories by exploring the role of international rescue technology and American leads.
Thunderbirds' role of gender helped to define the series' representation of the space race. The program displayed all American male leads, flying aircrafts and piloting rocket ships, most notably with the Tracy family. There are a few exceptions to this, however, which emphasize women in roles of authority. Thunderbirds' space-themed episodes confidently reflected current British space development programs, which Gerry Anderson considered in ensuring his series was believable to a 1960s audience. The space-age era was displayed creatively with mechanized devices which operated communications equipment and everyday objects. Sun Probe saw an American-led program launch a rocket into the sun. Ricochet represented contemporary concerns about pirate stations, and Day of Disaster saw Americans launching Martian rockets from Britain. The Tracy family were heavily dominated with masculine influences, which was based on Anderson's poor relationship with his mother. The Andersons carefully considered how they formed the American Tracy family. AP Films' intention for American male role models was to create a merchandising appeal of Thunderbirds and to ensure Thunderbirds was sold to an American network. Anderson set a key asset within his science fiction productions that made his series popular within the 1960s. During a behind the scenes interview, Anderson expressed his intention to create his fictional programs as believable as possible. His ideas were based on real-life events which made British audiences resonate with his programs. Thunderbirds' visual representation of space was displayed with technical excellence. Derek Meddings' ingenious model work showed rockets convincingly lifting off and flying through space. Anderson insisted that America led the advancement of technology as opposed to Britain. To help sell Thunderbirds to the American market, America was portrayed to be leading the space race. American rocket sites were leading missions into space. Therefore, Thunderbirds was produced as an American show. The space race helped Anderson create an exciting and fast-moving series that was aimed to sell Thunderbirds to American networks. Britain controlled a separate space program and possessed the technology to create high-powered rockets, such as the Blue Streak missile. As Britain was not financially viable to compete against the Americans and the Soviets, Britain's space program ended. Gerry Anderson predicted a global network where information and transmissions can be made between individuals that predated mobile phones and social media. The American Tracy family benefit from their advanced communications relay from Thunderbird 5. International Rescue's technologically advanced satellite manned the Earth for distress calls and allowed the Tracy family to communicate with each other on assignments. Throughout Thunderbirds, the Tracy brothers communicate to their base with paintings of the 5 Tracy sons, which are turned into monitors when the boys call their father at Tracy Island. The eyes on the monitor flash for the member of International Rescue who contacts their base. The photograph then is replaced to reveal the Tracy son at the danger zone. Controls and gadgets allowed International Rescue members to communicate with the option of either audio or visual selection. In Sun Probe, Jeff communicates with Cape Kennedy regarding International Rescue steps to save the Sun Probe. Jeff talks through a red booth through audio selection, thus protecting the identities of International Rescue. Toothpaste tubes, radio sets, and doorbells were various items used to create Anderson's science fiction world. The comforts and implementation of technology affected all areas of living. Buttons, levers, and switches were common features of computer desks and also among living rooms. Devices would activate mechanized functions to open and close doors or launch rockets into space. Thunderbirds' representation of space disasters was filled with colliding rockets and vessels running into imminent danger. Based at Cape Kennedy and operated by 3 male American astronauts. Sun Probe saw Americans leading space exploration. The space race was displayed with astronauts who are surrounded with masculine influences and robots helping guide mankind's exploration into space travel. After collecting a section of the Sun, the radiation of the solar flares led the Sun probe to crash into the Sun. The conquest of the Moon within a matter of years prompted Anderson to predict America advancing space travel beyond our solar system and to fly rockets into the Sun. Tintin makes an unusual decision to join Alan and Scott in Thunderbird 3 to save the Sun probe. As this is her first rescue mission, her father Kirano feels anxious for the safety of her daughter on a particularly dangerous assignment. Although Tintin successfully fires the retros of the Sun probe, her actions led to Thunderbird 3 crashing into the Sun. The tension builds for the audience, seeing their heroes fall into danger, sending Thunderbird 3 to a doomed fate through Tintin's actions as Kirano grieves for the loss of his daughter. The role of gender was explored by representing American male astronauts pioneering space travel, as well as the relationship of fatherhood. Tintin's mother is never revealed within the series, and Kirano grieves for her daughter in the episode as this is his only family member he knows he has. Sunprobe was also embedded into scientific fascination, not only in the space race, but also with automation. Brain's invention, Brainman, presented robots at the forefront of space travel. Brainman was an essential part of the episode, being International Rescue's answer to save Thunderbird 3 from colliding into the Sun. Sunprobe was one of several Thunderbirds episodes originally made as a 25-minute installment, but was increased to 50 minutes. After being highly impressed with the pilot episode, ITC Entertainment ordered the immediate expansion of episodes to double in length. Sunprobe's expanded plot saw international rescue placed at the center of danger. Both Gerry and Sylvia Anderson have described the huge turnaround this brought to AP Films, but have both insisted that the hour-long format led Thunderbirds in becoming AP Films' most successful series. The second season episode, Ricochet, discussed pirate radio satellites becoming a threat to life in an age of automated controlled rockets. Space satellites were predicted to become an essential part of America's space program. The episode showed a woman leading the automatic countdown of a rocket and displayed a differentiation of popular culture through gender. Gerry Anderson took the inspiration for the penultimate episode of Thunderbirds from space pirate stations and the Radio Carolina incident. With the authority of space travel under the International Space Control, unaware of an illegal radio station orbiting the Earth, an automatic rocket explodes and causes damage to pirate satellite KLA. One contradictory to seeing all male leads operating rockets was a female character that ran the launch of the automated rocket, which Sylvia Anderson critically described to tackle women in authority positions. Jeff described the launch automatic rocket countdowns to lack excitement compared to manual takeoffs. He stated that the pirate ship transmitting Tintin's radio channel as unsafe, judging from his experience and entrepreneurship dedicated in space travel. Jeff provided an authority figure for the Tracys to determine how technology can be used positively and negatively. Thunderbirds predicted illegal pirate stations to transmit popular music. The episode translated 1960s popular music into a space-age scenario in a generation fascinated in space travel. The contrast in gender led to different tastes on the opinion of pop music. Whilst Tintin enjoys the music, Alan and Brains disliked it. Brains remained aware of the appeal of popular culture to possess a hypnotic effect among listeners, describing pop music as a cliche, but nevertheless an attractive commodity among 1960s Britons. The 1965 episode, Day of Disaster, explored the preparation of an American rocket launching to Mars. Anderson maintained the realistic approach that the Martian space rockets can only reach the red planet within a 4-year window, or would otherwise be out of reach from Earth's orbit. Due to the trajectory needed to send a ship from Earth to Mars, the rocket's launch site was in Britain. Britain was incapable of competing with American space developments by matching infrastructure that was suitable for carrying American rockets. The result of this jeopardized the lives of 2 American astronauts aboard the Martian rocket. British television was dominated with coverage of the rocket's transportation, allowing the British to gloat over the publicity of American rockets traveling along British infrastructure. British ministers and engineers failed to construct a bridge capable of withstanding the weight of American constructed rockets, forcing the rocket to collapse along the bridge. Brains contacts international rescue about the disaster with his radio built into his watch, even when the British ministers are at fault for failing to construct secure infrastructure. The British managers believe they are capable of rescuing the Americans themselves from the rocket. The managers bluntly dismiss the aid of international rescue. When Brains talks to his watch, the managers think he is ludicrous, not knowing Brains is communicating with international rescue. The Tracys, using built-in technology and flying sleek aircrafts, become role models for the series. The Americans use technical devices in everyday objects to benefit their operation, allowing Brains to oversee the rescue from the danger zone. The observation of a masculine influence within Thunderbirds of good-looking American leads, the sons of a billionaire operating futuristic aircrafts, possess no feminine influences. After the Second World War, Britain attempted to restore British national identity by reasserting masculinity to be heroic. The Andersons maintain this within the series' main leads. Gerry Anderson himself held no mother figure and depicted his characters throughout his programs with all masculine influences with no mothers. Sylvia provided Thunderbirds' femininity through the series' characters. Sylvia carefully selected the voice artist for the puppets and inspired the close family feel of the Tracys from Bonanza. The most explicit example of characters missing feminine influences was from Security Hazard, a Thunderbirds episode featuring flashbacks to Sun Probe and Day of Disaster. A young boy, Chip, is bluntly told by his father, "It's not like you had a mother to look after you." Security Hazard took an episode of the series featuring a specific Thunderbird at the center of a rescue. Sun Probe was chosen as the episode to represent Thunderbird 3 and the series' space-themed episodes. The masculine element of featuring hardware led to Sylvia Anderson criticizing the femininity of Sun Probe. The gadgets and apparatus of Thunderbird's visual depiction of the space race, of flying vehicles and rockets, influenced the series' groundbreaking wave of memorabilia. Models of various Thunderbirds crafts became available in the 1960s for children to play with from companies such as Dinky Toys and Meccano, which fired the imagination of children to create their own Thunderbird stories. By the end of 1966, over 120 Thunderbirds licensees were issuing merchandise, earning £60 million in retail turnover. Thunderbirds dominated the 1960s British toy market. Dinky's Thunderbirds models remained the manufacturer's most popular products and remained in print until 1979, exceeding Dinky's production of vehicles from Anderson's post-Thunderbirds shows. Anderson did not continue with Thunderbirds, in spite of the series' merchandising success. Thunderbirds failed to gain an American network, leading to the series' cancellation. ITC Entertainment were forced to sell Thunderbirds to America in syndication, as ITC needed an American network to economically justify making Thunderbirds. On the belief of Thunderbirds' vast merchandising potential, ITC outpriced the series for American networks. Thunderbirds' compelling space-centered episodes were stimulated from contemporary British space development programs that ensured Anderson maintained a realistic potential of space travel. The series explored the conquest of space travel to the Sun and to Mars, as well as the dangers posed by unauthorized space satellites. The Andersons maintained the creative intention that the role of gender in these episodes was displayed by nearly all American male leads piloting rockets. To ensure the series was as marketable and as saleable to Britain and America as possible, the series' leads needed to be American male role models. The Cold War element within Thunderbirds helped represent the British class system. The series displayed nuclear disasters, espionage, and the balance of power in international relations. The unique role of Lady Penelope and Parker highlighted the British class structure and led Lady Penelope to become an iconic female role model of 1960s Britain. The versatility of Thunderbirds' characters helped to display different subclass roles between different ethnic minorities. Throughout Thunderbirds, corrupt businessmen, politicians, or working class crooks represent renegade groups or men out to claim power for their greed. The mighty atom presented a nuclear explosion which was caused by the Hood. The series' theme of espionage in The Man from MI5 explored spies and the role of international rescue agents have in protecting the world. The British class system was comedically mocked in Vault of Death, making Thunderbirds a more appealing and marketable series. The Man from MI5 and Vault of Death primarily focused on Lady Penelope as the leads of the episodes, which helped to strengthen her popularity by focusing on episodes specifically dedicated to her exploits. Thunderbirds strengthened the international relations of Anderson's in-universe ties with his other productions through spin-off memorabilia. The appeal to the series was enhanced further through AP Films' sophisticated puppetry to produce memorable characters who characterized the structure of the class system. Hearn described Thunderbirds to picture a global harmony where the world is united at peace. Gerry Anderson's programs depicted the world's international unification to occur within the near future, in spite of the security organizations established in Anderson's productions. Independent renegade groups were still actively working against the world government. Anderson predicted the atrocities witnessed during the Second World War to have led to successful international relations, believing in the longevity of peace treaties between continents by 2065. In his programs, global security organizations protect world order from antagonistic powers. Viewers of Thunderbirds considered the series' warnings over nuclear disaster following the Cuban Missile Crisis's global ramifications. The legality of America's international role came from Britain, a country essential in resolving the crisis. Britain stood prepared to help resolve the global diplomacy. Thunderbirds presented a nuclear disaster in the mighty atom, caused by the Hood's act of sabotage. The nuclear explosion was persuasively assessed as a creeping horror as the poisonous cloud blew towards Australia's cities, about to choke millions in radioactive fog. Chris Bentley described this as an effective sequence, despite the absence of the series' main characters and star vehicles in providing drama. Marcus Hearn agreed by stating this as one of Thunderbird's most effective sequences. Ian Fryer considered the series' extended format, allowing scriptwriter Dennis Spooner to create a subplot demonstrating how an unlimited power source created potential danger. In his biography, Anderson intended for the series' primary antagonist not to be a typical Russian spy as expected by British audiences, but to be of Malayan origin. Often throughout Thunderbirds and Gerry Anderson's SUPERMARIONATION programs, foreign villains were supplied with Oriental or Russian accents to create distrust for the British viewer. Malayans were represented as a subclass within Thunderbirds. Tintin and Kirano are also of Malayan origin and are humble manservants to the Tracys. The British represented Malayans as subservient following the Malayan emergency. Communism was fought against Malayan independence and the British Empire, whereas the Malayan Commonwealth and Federation aimed to protect Britain's colonial interests. The Hood's Malayan origin granted him mystic powers over Kirano. Several episodes of Thunderbirds, including the Mighty Atom, show the Hood contacting his half-brother to influence Kirano's behavior. Anderson's motivations of the Hood being Malayan encouraged British audiences to see him as justified as he caused a nuclear disaster. The Hood attempts to gain top-level information about security organizations to boost his wealth. In the episode, the Hood's attempt to cause another nuclear disaster forced international rescue to prevent a second catastrophe, which allowed the Hood to attempt to capture international rescue's secrets. His attempts were thwarted by Lady Penelope. In comparison to Cuba, the Americans are those who save the day from a nuclear fallout, but the British prevent international rescue secrets from being leaked. Sylvia Anderson believed Penelope's fear of mice diminished Penelope as a heroine, but agreed that the episode predicted the coming of Chernobyl. The series' most successful spy element came with Penelope and Parker. Penelope served as the exception to the Tracys, being placed at the center of danger. Aside from the Americans saving the day, Penelope and Parker represent the stereotypical British class system from an American perspective. Penelope was an aristocratic lady who had turned into a secret agent. Combined with Parker, a safe-cracking expert, Anderson provided an appeal for the American audience by laughing at British stereotypes whilst maintaining Thunderbird's technological appeal with Penelope's pink Rolls-Royce Fab 1. Even when Thunderbirds broke from the traditional rescue format, the series remained a highly entertaining program as a spy thriller series. The Tracys remain dedicated to saving lives in Pebble and do not become involved in secret undercover operations under instructions from political organizations. The exception to this becomes when the world is threatened with major loss of life. In The Man from MI5, undercover crooks attempt espionage by threatening the balance of power with a formula that aids the advancement of science. Because of the threat to millions of lives the stolen formula posed, Penelope decides for international rescue to act and goes undercover to track the agents down. The episode focused primarily on Penelope's exploits as a 1960s heroine. Episodes centered around Penelope and Parker expanded the Andersons' unique potential to create 1960s British role models for girls and boost the characters' merchandising potential. Penelope acts as an aristocratic secret agent who enjoys the luxuries in her yacht as she plots to bring the criminals to justice. The superficial glamour of her equipment and technology help to paint an attractive feminine appeal for girls. Younger women aspire to becoming as sophisticated as Penelope, who was a brave, intelligent member of the aristocracy who was able to maintain the cover of a secret agent. The Man from MI5 represents a class divide in comparison between Lady Penelope and the plot's antagonists, who are lower class gangsters. The antagonists hide in a submarine off the coast of France, where they gamble with money and card games. The gangsters come off as men who are desperate to gamble in games, which lead to financial losses to claim power and wealth from one another. Even when they attempt to threaten the world to ransom, the criminals plan to increase their status during their pastime. Thunderbirds' espionage themes displayed crafts hiding in silos, boats inside hangars, or beneath the sea as antagonistic characters plot their revenge or escape to achieve power. Death is sensitively covered on screen. The action or violence was never gratuitous, by not showing blood when the captain was gunned down at his desk, which maintained the series' family audience. As the episode is rooted in themes around the Cold War, Moments of death were less prominent in Thunderbirds episodes. British class and society are mocked further in Vault of Death, which also focuses on the relationship between Penelope and Parker, but this time through analysing their status within British society. The episode reflected Anderson's intention to represent British humour with comedic characters for the Americans to enjoy. The status of aristocratic individuals and criminals is carefully stereotyped to provide one of the series' most humorous episodes. The Bank of England accountants come off as uptight and condescending with their black suits and clear articulation of the British language. The bank's electronic vault uses technology to pump out the air to ensure the documents inside are protected in a vacuum, safely protecting British accounts. A conscientious colleague continues working in the vault without realizing he is trapped inside. As bank managers are dedicated to their work ethic, their status is elevated to allow them to become a higher class by putting in long hours to achieve good salaries. The audience is presented with Parker's connection with a working class syndicate, motivated not to ruin the reputation of any old acquaintances. When Penelope drives Fab One back to London, aristocratic ladies who are show driven by their butlers are depicted as incapable of driving. International Rescue is tasked with rescuing the trapped man. With their hoverbikes, Virgil and Alan journey through the London Underground, which Anderson predicted would be decommissioned for more efficient means of transportation. The Underground was dimly lit and abandoned, leading Virgil and Alan to become covered in soot after their journey. Anderson's style of puppetry was once labelled by the Monthly Film Bulletin as eerily monotonous voices and unvarying facial expressions, which may add a creepier element that puppets are wooden and they die. Sylvia Anderson was required to visualize their characters when considering the limitation AP Films' puppetry in creating realistic people in a believable future. Unable to convincingly walk the puppets, Anderson presented characters flying on portable transporters. Members of International Rescue travelled on hoverbikes, providing a glamorous and sophisticated mode of transport. Cinema magazine Parade promoted Thunderbirds by examining AP Films' unique filmmaking processes in creating the puppets' costumes, hair, and electronic mouth movement. The puppets were placed on a stage in a specially shot moment to examine how the puppets were operated. The climax from Trapped in the Sky is described to set the series in 2000, followed by the narrator claiming how successful Anderson's latest series will be. The spin-off media relating to Anderson's series set a clear in-universe link between his different SUPERMARIONATION programs. The inter-universe connection was made within the weekly comic TV21, which featured Anderson's 1960s programs within the strips. TV21 presented new fictional stories as newspaper strips, creating a sense of urgency for readers to engage in. The weekly publication of Anderson's content continued the success of his programs, maintaining the same degree of action and excitement of the television episodes. To establish world peace, a world president was established and proposed new globalized unifications that was controlled under various subdivisions. In Thunderbirds episodes and spin-off adventures, International Rescue are authorized to carry out their benevolent missions under the world government's authority. The strips tied in various Anderson programs together. The Zero X, which featured in the first Thunderbirds feature film and the opening episode of Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, appeared as its own strip in TV21. The biography of Gordon Tracy revealed to show he served for the Wasps, seen within Stingray, and Rhapsody Angel from Captain Scarlet previously worked for Lady Penelope. The exploits of International Rescue were enjoyed beyond TV21, with books, annuals, and other memorabilia. Thunderbirds' merchandising success was overseen by Keith Shackleton, Century 21 merchandising director. The series' espionage themes, inspired by contemporary Cold War tensions, boosted Thunderbirds' merchandising success through Lady Penelope's exploits. Thunderbirds' spy thriller elements were embedded within the books and comic strips. Penelope's adventures, separate from that of Thunderbird's own spin off stories, were advertised with elegance, charm, and deadly danger. Penelope was represented with pink colours, which aimed to reflect a fabulous aspect of the life of an aristocratic secret agent. Sylvia later claimed the answer of the series' code used with International Rescue Agents (FAB) meant the same response as fabulous, which reflected the superficially glamorous lives led by international rescue. Thunderbird's inspiration for secret agents was born out of Britain's Cold War anxieties and possibilities over a nuclear disaster, which helped to shape the series' representation of class. With the series' memorable characters, enhanced with AP Films' advanced puppetry, the stars of Thunderbirds are fondly recognised among the British public. Anderson successfully represented different classes through each character's ethnic origins. Examining the role of class between Thunderbird's characters lent the series a notable representation in displaying futuristic international relations and secret agents. Lady Penelope became a separate role model to the Tracys, which generated a distinctive following for young girls both within the television series and spin-off memorabilia. Britain's Cold War fears were also reflected within Thunderbird's comics and publications, which helped to depict an in-universe connection with the SUPERMARIONATION programs. Anderson maintained the intention for his programs to be picked up by the American networks, ensuring that his expensive programs were profitable. The depiction of Americans pioneering high-tech equipment aided in this. Fueled by the anxieties of the Cold War, Anderson created a contradictory future of a glamorous society which was powered by clean energy. The pessimistic consequences of this society saw the series make correct predictions about the outcome of human reliance on power. Thunderbirds' global setting helped to represent class and nationality through caricatured puppets. Anderson's themes, rooted in science and technology, led Thunderbirds to become a fondly remembered British cult series of the 1960s. Anderson's depiction of the science fiction elements, inspired by Cold War fears and the progress of the space race, continued beyond Thunderbirds. In 1967, Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons took the development of the space race with the Zero X's encounter with the Mysterons, cultivating in an Earth versus Mars war against invisible aliens. The espionage-themed Joe 90 saw a 9-year-old boy take the brain patterns of spies in completing their assignments with his special pair of glasses. Throughout the 1970s, Anderson moved to live action with UFO, which saw another battle between alien invaders and the defenders of Earth. Once man had landed on the moon, a more realistic approach of the advancements of space travel saw a moon base help defend Earth against aliens from penetrating Earth's atmosphere. The Cold War had moved on by Space 1999, but the series focused on the humanity of lunar colonists who were blown out of Earth's orbit and sent into a voyage through space. Whilst Anderson maintained the concept of a globalized Earth, Moonbase Alpha's personnel covered different continents. Space 1999 focused heavily on Moonbase Alpha's spacecraft and ability to survive in an unknown universe while searching for a new home to colonize. As Cold War tensions settled in the 1980s, Terrorhawks adopted Captain Scarlet's Earth versus Mars scenario to a closer period, depicting a unified government made swiftly after the end of the Cold War. As Anderson's filmmaking career expanded, Thunderbirds' repeat screenings across the decades have allowed new generations to perceive Thunderbirds' warnings with a new perspective. The concerns of Thunderbirds' scientific warnings as the world evolved have been based on contemporary scientific fears over the safety of technology and power. AP Films' ingenuity has allowed Thunderbirds to spawn interest well beyond 1960s Britain through the continued interest in the series and 1960s feature films. Thunderbirds has enjoyed repeat screenings in Britain throughout the 1970s and 1980s, alongside stage performances dedicated to the series. The major resurgence of interest in the 1990s and 2000s brought about new media presentations, continuing Thunderbirds' popularity across new productions. Episodes have been repackaged into feature film presentations, and Anderson's puppetry style brought a much loved attention to the format of anime, leading to Thunderbirds 2086. America has attempted to relaunch the series with turbocharged Thunderbirds and a live action remake in 2004. The series has officially been remade by an international production, forming the CGI Thunderbirds Are Go series. Thunderbirds 1965 saw a dedicated team of film enthusiasts recapture the puppetry style matching the 1960s series, whilst Big Finish have reconstructed the original 1960s publications for audio listeners. Throughout each iteration of Thunderbirds, new generations have perceived a futuristic world differently from the one that Britain faced in 1965. Based on current scientific and technological perspectives, Thunderbirds has been consistently updated to ensure the series' cult status has endured.